When you hear Japanese minimalism, what do you picture? Maybe a blindingly white living room, one designer chair, no books, no cables, nothing on the floor. The kind of place where you're scared to put your coffee down because it might ruin the vibe. Now imagine this instead. Soft light slipping through paper screens, a low wooden table with a few cushions, a cup of tea sitting on a slightly worn tray, floorboards that gently creak when you walk. Same word, minimalism, but a completely different feeling, right? I still remember the first time I tried to go minimalist with my room. I followed everything I saw on Instagram and Pinterest. I donated half my stuff, hid the rest in boxes, made my walls as bare as possible. For a moment, it looked impressively empty, very before and after friendly. But when I sat down on my perfectly made bed that night, I didn't feel calm. I felt cold, like I was visiting a hotel, not living in a home. Have you ever felt that too? You finally declutter, you do everything right, and somehow it still doesn't feel like you? If you've ever tried to copy the Pinterest version of Japanese minimalism, all white walls, empty rooms, zero clutter, thinking that was the goal, this video is for you. Because what I eventually discovered in real Japanese spaces was almost the opposite. More human, more imperfect, more alive than anything I had seen online. In today's video, we're going to peel back that glossy Instagram layer and look at what Japanese minimalism really is. We'll talk about 5 key truths most people don't realize, why it's not about perfection, not about empty spaces, why it goes far beyond a one-time cleanup, why it embraces organic, asymmetrical beauty, and how it's actually a lifestyle, not just a trend. By the end, I hope you won't just think, oh, that looks nice. I hope you'll start to feel, wait, maybe minimalism can finally feel like home. 1. Not about perfection. What comes to mind when you hear minimalist room? Be honest. Do you see a pristine white box, a beige couch that no one dares sit on, everything lined up at perfect 90-degree angles, not a single thing out of place? It almost looks like a furniture showroom, where a real human has never eaten a messy sandwich or spilled coffee on the rug. That's the picture most of us have been sold. Minimalism as perfection, as performance, as a kind of interior design competition where the cleanest, straightest lines win. But Japanese minimalism, the kind that quietly runs through so many homes in Japan, is not obsessed with that kind of perfection at all. In fact, if you walked into a truly lived-in Japanese-inspired home, you might be surprised. The wooden floorboards might be scratched in the path, where people walk the most. The tatami mats might show a soft, darker patch, where feet have rested for years. The favorite teacup on the shelf might have a tiny chip on the rim or an uneven glaze that a factory would call a mistake. At first glance, you might think, wait, isn't minimalism supposed to erase all of this? This is where the Japanese idea of beauty gently pushes back. There's a word you might have heard before, Wabi-Sabi. In simple terms, it's the appreciation of things that are imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. It's the feeling you get when you see a weathered wooden bench that has survived many rainy seasons, or a piece of pottery that's just slightly lopsided, clearly made by human hands, not a machine. Instead of hiding those marks of time, Japanese aesthetics highlight them. They're proof that something has been used, loved, and trusted over and over again. Think about your own home for a second. Is there an object you've had for years that's a little worn, but you just can't let go of? Maybe an old mug that has a tiny crack, but it's the one you reach for every morning. Maybe a table with a ring mark from a hot cup of coffee and a scratch from when you moved apartments. In a typical Instagram minimalism mindset, those things are flaws. They're reasons to replace the item, to upgrade to something new, smoother, more perfect for the camera. But in a Japanese-inspired minimalist home, those marks are like wrinkles on a beloved face. They tell a story. I remember visiting a small guest house in Japan once. When I walked across the floor, the old wooden boards creaked under my feet. In many modern apartments, that would be considered a problem to fix. But there, it felt comforting. The creak wasn't a sign of neglect. It was a sign of life. That floor had supported thousands of footsteps, families, travelers, quiet mornings, and late-night conversations. The tiny noise made the house feel alive, like it was gently acknowledging someone is home. Have you ever been in a place that wasn't perfect, but somehow felt incredibly safe and warm? That's the feeling we're talking about. Now, imagine this visually in the video. On one side, we show the typical Western-style perfect minimalist room. Bright white walls, sharp black furniture, ultra-clean surfaces, everything aligned as if a ruler designed it. It's impressive, yes. But does it feel human? Would you feel relaxed eating ramen on that couch? Then, we cut to a traditional Japanese room. Soft light coming through shoji screens, tatami with a slight discoloration where people sit, a low wooden table with a few scratches on its surface, a single ceramic cup with a glaze that fades unevenly near the base. Which space would your body actually want to sink into? Here's the key shift. In Japanese minimalism, the goal isn't to create a spotless showroom. The goal is to create a space where life can happen comfortably. The scratch on the floorboard, the worn spot on the mat, the slightly chipped cup, these are allowed to stay because they prove that the object has served you well. Instead of constantly chasing new and flawless, the focus moves to trusted and meaningful. You keep fewer things, yes, but you let them live with you long enough to age. There's also an important note here. This doesn't mean you should tolerate broken, unsafe, or dirty things. Japanese homes are often very clean and well-maintained. The difference is that they don't confuse no flaws with good life. They'll wipe the table every night, but they won't panic if the wood shows a faint ring from a teacup that once sat there too long. They'll repair a cracked bowl with care instead of throwing it away, sometimes even highlighting the repair so its story is remembered. It's not laziness, it's respect. So maybe the real question for your own space isn't, how can I make everything look perfect? But how can I make this room feel honest? If minimalism for you has always meant hiding every trace of use, maybe it's time to rewrite that definition. What if your minimalist home didn't have to perform for anyone? Not for guests, not for social media, not even for your own internal critic, but simply had to support the way you live, day after day. You see that scratch on the floorboard? Most people would want to sand it out, repaint, start fresh. But in a Japanese-inspired home, that scratch might stay, because it means someone walked there, over and over. It means there was laughter, and rushing to answer the door, and pacing while talking on the phone. It's a small mark of life, and sometimes that's more beautiful than a perfect, untouched surface. And once you start seeing imperfection this way, something softens inside you. You stop demanding that your home be flawless before you're allowed to feel calm. You stop waiting for the day when everything is finally in place. Instead, you start asking a gentler question. Can I create a space where real life is welcome? That's the first myth we let go of together. Minimalism does not equal perfection. In Japanese minimalism, imperfection isn't the enemy, it's often the very point. 2. Not about empty spaces. If Japanese minimalism isn't about perfection, then maybe it's about empty rooms, right? White walls, one lonely chair, nothing on the floor, the kind of space where you're scared to even put your bag down. That's the image a lot of people have. Minimalism equals absence, equals less, equals nothing. But let me ask you this. When you look at those super trendy minimalist photos online, the room that's almost completely empty, maybe one chair in the corner, lots of bare floor, no personality at all. Does it really feel alive to you? Would you actually want to live there, or does it feel more like an art gallery you have to tiptoe through? Now, imagine another scene, a small tatami room in Japan, soft afternoon light filtering through shoji screens. The floor is mostly open, yes, but there's a low wooden table in the center, 2 or 3 cushions around it, maybe a single ceramic vase with a sprig of green on a tiny shelf. It's still simple. There's still a lot of empty space, but somehow this space feels warm, like it's waiting for tea or a book or a quiet conversation. This is where another Japanese idea comes in, ma. In very simple terms, ma is the space between things. Not empty space as in nothingness, but space that has a purpose. Space where air can move, where light can fall, where your body can stretch out, where your mind can actually breathe. It's less about removing everything, and more about asking, what kind of space do I want to create here? Think of a room like a canvas. You wouldn't cover every inch of the canvas with paint until there's no white left, but you also wouldn't frame a completely blank canvas and say, ta-da, masterpiece. You use space intentionally. You choose where to put color, where to leave it open, so that what's there has room to stand out. A Japanese-inspired minimalist home treats rooms in the same way. The empty parts aren't a design flex. They're breathing room for life. One of the reasons Japanese homes often feel so different is that rooms are flexible, not fixed. A tatami room might be a tea room in the morning, a workspace in the afternoon, and a sleeping area at night. The same floor might host a quiet meditation, a family dinner, or a friend crashing on a futon. Because of that, you won't usually see bulky, permanent furniture taking over the space. Instead of a huge sofa that declares, "This is a living room and only a living room," you'll see a low table that can be moved, cushions that can be stacked away, bedding that can be folded into a closet. That's why the floor looks open. Not because minimalism says less stuff, but because the space itself needs to be free to change, to adapt, to respond to what the person actually needs that day. You're not creating emptiness for the sake of aesthetics. You're creating space so your life has room to move. Let me give you a small, real-life picture. I have a friend who lives in a tiny Tokyo apartment. If she followed Western Pinterest minimalism, that space would either be crammed with storage hacks or turned into one cold, empty white box. She chose a different route. In her living room, she has one simple low table, 2 floor cushions, and a single low shelf. On that shelf, there are maybe 10 books she truly loves, a small plant, and a tea set she uses almost every day. That's it. When you walk in, you don't think, "Wow, this is empty." You think, "Oh, I can sit here, I can put my cup down, I can stretch my legs. The floor around the table is open, yes, but it doesn't feel like a void. It feels like possibility." She can roll out a futon to sleep, she can host a friend for dinner, she can spread out her laptop and notebook to work. The so-called empty space is actually working very hard for her. So, when we talk about Japanese minimalism, it's important to shift from "how can I have as little as possible" to "how can I make space that supports what I truly do?" Maybe for you, that looks like replacing a huge sectional sofa with a smaller couch and a couple of light chairs that can be moved around. Maybe it means having one open wall instead of filling every corner with shelves. Maybe it's just clearing one part of your living room floor so you can stretch, dance, or play with your kids without bumping into furniture. See how the tatami floor is mostly empty? You might think it feels bare, but to the person who lives there, it's freedom. That space means they can roll out a futon to sleep, gather friends for tea, or just stand quietly and breathe. The emptiness isn't a punishment, it's an invitation. And you don't have to live in Japan or have tatami to apply this. Look around your home and ask, which empty spaces feel cold, and which ones, if I cleared them, might actually feel like a fresh exhale? Maybe you don't need an empty house. You just need a bit more space that's not filled with random, forgotten things. Space that's ready for the next moment of your life, not just the next piece of decor. In the end, minimalism isn't about making your home look like no one lives there. It's about giving yourself enough breathing room so that you actually can live there. Move, rest, change, grow. Not empty for minimalism, but empty enough for you. 3. Beyond just cleaning the house. So now that we've talked about imperfection and breathing room, there's another trap we need to gently step around. The idea that minimalism is just a really intense cleaning project. You know what I mean, right? Those 30-day declutter challenges where you empty your closet, fill up 10 trash bags, post a satisfying before-after photo, and then a few weeks later, the drawers are mysteriously full again. Have you ever done that? You clean like crazy on a Sunday, feel amazing for a week, and then slowly the mail piles up. The shopping bags appear, the random just-in-case things sneak back in. It's like the clutter is on a subscription plan. That's because most of us treat minimalism like a reset button, not a way of living. We attack the symptoms, the mess, the overstuffed drawers, the overflowing wardrobe, but we never really change what's happening underneath. How we buy, how we keep, how we relate to our things. So of course, it all comes back. It's like going on a crash diet and then returning to the same habits. The weight doesn't stay off, and the clutter doesn't either. Japanese minimalism, at least the kind we're talking about here, goes deeper than that. It's not just about that one weekend when you finally cleaned out the garage. It's about the quiet, daily decisions you make with your objects and your space. Instead of asking, how quickly can I get rid of stuff? It asks, what do I allow into my home in the first place? How do I take care of it once it's here? Why is it here at all? Think of it as a long-term relationship instead of a fling. When you bring something into a Japanese-inspired minimalist home, the idea is that it earns its place. You don't keep 100 mugs just because they were on sale. You keep the 3 you actually use and love, and then you treat them well. You don't buy a new table every time the trend changes. You choose a simple, solid one and maintain it so it can live with you for years, maybe even decades. This mindset naturally brings in 2 big themes: mindfulness and sustainability. Mindfulness sounds like a big fancy word, but here it just means paying attention. Paying attention before you buy something. Do I really need this, or am I bored, stressed, or trying to fill an emotional gap? Paying attention when you use it. Am I treating this object with care or tossing it around like it's disposable? Paying attention when it's broken or worn. Can I repair this, clean it, renew it, instead of immediately replacing it? In a lot of Japanese homes, you can see this in the tiny, almost invisible routines. In the morning, futons are carefully folded and stored away, not just thrown into a corner. At the end of the day, tables are wiped with a soft cloth, not in a rushed, angry way, but as a small act of closure. Today is done, thank you for holding everything. Before a favorite mug is put back on the shelf, it might be washed by hand, dried gently, and placed in its spot like a little bow of gratitude. It sounds romantic, but it's also very practical. When you take care of things, they last longer. Compare that with the typical fast consumer loop many of us are stuck in. Buy something cheap because it's trendy. Use it carelessly, get bored or it breaks, throw it out, repeat. Our homes become revolving doors for objects that never really matter to us. And the cost isn't just money. It's also the mental noise of always managing, rearranging, and cleaning things we don't even truly care about. Have you ever cleaned out a drawer and thought, why do I even have half of this? A Japanese minimalist approach tries to break that loop. Fewer things, yes, but fewer things that are chosen slowly, with intention, and then respected. That has real benefits. Less waste going to landfills, fewer impulse purchases draining your bank account, less time spent picking up random clutter you don't love. Minimalism, suddenly, isn't this aesthetic flex for social media. It's a practical way to live lighter on the planet and gentler with yourself. And again, this doesn't mean your home has to look like a magazine, or that you should feel guilty every time you buy something new. Every family, every person has different needs. Maybe you have kids, hobbies, or work-from-home setups that require more equipment. That's okay. Minimalism doesn't have to be one size fits all. The point is not have the fewest things, but have a healthy relationship with the things you choose. So, when you think about Japanese minimalism, try to see beyond that satisfying mountain of trash bags after a big cleanup. Ask instead, what little habits could I build into my day? Maybe it's a 5-minute reset every evening where you put things back in their place. Maybe it's taking a breath before clicking Add to Cart. Maybe it's choosing to fix one item this month instead of replacing it. Throwing out old junk feels satisfying. Until a few weeks later, your drawers are full again. That's because you fixed the symptom, not the cause. Real minimalism isn't a lifetime of cleaning marathons. It's a quiet, ongoing decision about how you live, what you buy, and how you treat what you keep. It's less about a single big after photo, and more about waking up every day in a home that supports the person you're becoming. 4. Organic and asymmetrical, not geometrically precise. If minimalism isn't just about perfection or empty rooms or one big cleanup, then the next question is, what does it actually look like? Because a lot of the minimalism you see online has a very specific look. Sharp corners, perfect grids, everything lined up like a design software mock-up. It's clean, yes, but sometimes it feels like you're walking into a high-end store rather than a home. Picture this on screen for a moment. On the left, you see a stark white cube house. The furniture is metal and glass. The lines are razor straight. The chairs look like they were designed by a robot that's never sat down. Even the decorations, if there are any, are obsessively symmetrical. It all screams, I am minimal, I am modern, I am very serious. Now, on the right, you see a different kind of minimal space. Wooden floor with a visible grain, a low table with slightly rounded edges, cushions that are a little bit soft and lived in, light slipping through shoji screens, and casting gentle, irregular shadows on the tatami. There's a simple ceramic cup on the table. Not perfectly round, its glaze a little uneven. Both spaces are clean, both are simple. But which one feels alive to you? Japanese minimalism leans toward that second room. Instead of chasing perfect geometry, it welcomes what's natural, slightly irregular, sometimes even a bit quirky. It uses wood, natural fibers, paper, clay. It allows for organic shapes, a chair with a curved back, a bowl that tilts just a tiny bit, a storage chest whose wood has darkened in some spots and lightened in others. Rather than trying to erase every sign that materials came from the earth, it actually highlights them. Think about how different it feels to touch a smooth plastic surface versus a wooden one with grain you can see and feel. One is neutral, almost anonymous. The other has personality. You can trace the lines with your fingers and imagine the tree it once was. In many Japanese homes, this kind of texture is everywhere. The tatami weave under your feet, the wooden frame around the shoji, the soft wrinkles in a linen curtain. Nothing is screaming for attention, but everything quietly says, "I'm real. I'm here with you." You can see this in specific objects too. Take a tansu, those wooden storage chests used in traditional Japanese interiors. They're simple and practical, but if you look closely, no two are exactly the same. The handles, the grain, the way the wood is aged. There's always a little irregularity. Or, look at handmade pottery. One cup might bulge a little on one side. The color might fade slightly toward the rim. The glaze might pool a bit thicker at the bottom. A factory line might label that as defective. But in a Japanese-inspired minimalist home, that's often the cup that becomes the favorite. It's a bit like listening to music on an old vinyl record versus a super clean digital file. Both play the same song, but the vinyl has a bit of crackle, a softness, a warmth that makes it feel closer, more human. Those tiny imperfections are not noise. They're part of the experience. Organic, asymmetrical design works the same way. It reminds you that your home is not a showroom. It's a place where human beings, imperfect, changing, emotional, actually live. And the beautiful part is, you don't need a traditional Japanese house or antiques to bring this feeling into your own space. You don't have to throw out everything and start over. Sometimes it's as simple as swapping one thing. Maybe you replace a glossy, mass-produced vase with a simple handmade mug you found at a local market. Maybe you choose a wooden tray with a visible knot instead of a perfectly smooth plastic one. Maybe your next set of napkins is plain cotton or linen that wrinkles a bit, instead of something stiff and shiny. As you make these small choices, your home starts to shift. The overall look can still be very minimal. Fewer items, clean surfaces, plenty of breathing room. But the things you do keep carry more warmth. Instead of your eyes bouncing off shiny, cold surfaces, they rest on textures that feel calm and grounded. Even a single piece, like a slightly uneven ceramic bowl on an otherwise empty shelf, can change the whole mood of a room. So when you think of minimalist style, it doesn't have to mean a rigid, ultra-modern box with everything measured to the millimeter. It can mean a soft, natural space where the lines are a little less perfect, but the feeling is much more human. Minimalism, in this Japanese sense, isn't trying to impress you with how precise and controlled it is. It's trying to support you with how gentle and real it feels. See how that mug isn't perfectly round, and its glaze is slightly uneven? A factory might reject it as flawed, but in Japanese-inspired minimalism, that little flaw is part of its soul. It's what makes you reach for that mug again and again, because somehow it feels like it belongs to you and you belong to it. In the end, the question isn't, how do I make my home look like a design catalog? It's, how do I make my space feel like a quiet, steady reflection of who I am? When you invite organic shapes, natural textures, and a bit of asymmetry into your minimalist home, you're not breaking the rules. You're actually stepping closer to a kind of minimalism that looks less like a machine and more like life itself. 5. Integrating lifestyle, not optimizing for trends. By now, you can probably feel it already. Japanese minimalism isn't just about how a room looks. It's about how a life feels inside that room. And this is where we hit another big misunderstanding. The difference between minimalism as a trend and minimalism as a lifestyle. If you've ever scrolled through Instagram or Pinterest and typed in minimalist home, you know what I'm talking about. Quick montage in your mind. Perfectly staged living rooms, trending beige or pastel color palettes, the same chairs, the same lamps, the same prints on the wall. Everything looks on brand. It photographs beautifully. And if you're honest, maybe part of you has thought, if my home looked like that, I'd finally feel calm. But Here's a gentle question. Would you still feel that way in 6 months, in a year? Or would it just start to feel like another costume your home is wearing? This time, the minimalist costume. Trend-based minimalism is sneaky. On the surface, it looks simple and intentional, but underneath it often works exactly like any other trend. This year it's beige, next year it's gray, then it's Japandi, then it's something else. You keep changing your decor, your cushions, your rug, your coffee table, trying to match what's currently popular. The stuff might be simpler, but the cycle, buy, update, replace, is still the same. It's just wearing a neutral color palette now. Japanese minimalism, at its core, moves very differently. It doesn't rush to keep up. It listens. It pays attention to seasons, to climate, to the quiet rhythm of daily life. Spaces evolve slowly, not because a new trend dropped, but because life changed. Someone got older. A child was born. Work shifted. The body needed more rest, or more light, or less noise. Think of a Japanese home through the year. In summer, you might see a thin cotton futon, a lighter blanket, windows open to let air move through tatami rooms. The meals are lighter, the colors on the table a bit brighter. In winter, the same home doesn't suddenly become winter aesthetic. It just quietly adds what's needed. Thicker blankets, maybe a small wood stove or a kotatsu, that low-heated table with a blanket that everyone tucks their legs under. The core stays the same. The layers change with the season. Even clothes, toys, or small objects often follow this rhythm. Some things come out only in certain seasons and then get carefully stored away. There's a sense of rotation, not constant replacement. Instead of, I'm bored, I need something new, it becomes, it's time to bring this out again. There's a kind of reunion feeling. Oh, I remember you. This is where timelessness starts to appear. When you're not constantly chasing what's new, you begin to ask different questions when you buy something. Not, will this look good in my next Instagram post? But, will this still feel like me next year, in 5 years? Not, is this trending? But, does this belong in the life I actually live? And that's really what integrating minimalism into your lifestyle looks like. It's less about optimizing your decor, more about knowing yourself. Do you get cold easily? Then maybe your minimalist living room needs a stack of soft blankets, not just a single beautiful throw for photos. Do you love cooking? Then your minimalist kitchen might have more tools, but each one chosen carefully, used often, and cared for. Do you work from home? Maybe your minimalism focuses on a clear desk, good light, and fewer digital distractions, rather than a perfectly styled bookshelf behind you. One person might live with just a futon, a low table, and a single shelf, and feel completely nourished. Another might need a bit more structure, more storage, more tools for their work or art. Both can be minimalist in a Japanese sense, as long as the choices are anchored in intention rather than hype. I've heard versions of this story many times. Someone keeps redecorating their living room, following whatever is popular. New cushions, new prints, new rug, new must-have chair. For a week, it feels exciting. Then the buzz fades, and there's this quiet emptiness inside, like the room doesn't really know who lives there. And then, at some point, they stop. They sell or donate the things that never truly felt right. They keep a few pieces that actually match their body, their routine, their climate. They start noticing the light in the room at different times of day, adjusting where the chair goes, not because of a trend, but because it feels better by the window in the morning. And that's when the strange thing happens. For the first time, they feel at home. If you want to move in this direction, you don't have to flip your life upside down. You can start very small. Before buying something, pause and ask, do I need this now? Will I still be glad I have it next year? When you feel the urge to change your whole decor, ask, is this coming from me or from what I just saw online? Instead of grabbing bold decor pieces that only work for one season, try choosing simple, functional items that can quietly adapt. A plain wooden tray, neutral bedding you can layer, a mug you'll love in any month of the year. You can also play with seasonality at your own pace. Maybe you don't change everything, but you rotate a few things. A heavier curtain in winter, lighter textiles in summer, a small seasonal element on your table that comes and goes. The point isn't to create a Japanese house. The point is to let your home breathe with your life, instead of locking it into a permanent showroom. That pastel pink minimalist sofa, sure, it's trending now, But next year, will it still feel like you, or just like what everyone else was doing for a moment? Real minimalism isn't trend-proof decor, it's soul-proof living. Japanese minimalism isn't a final look you achieve one day and freeze forever. It's a way of walking through your life, choosing a little more slowly, living a little more gently, and letting your home change with you, not with the algorithm. So, if we gently zoom out for a moment, what did we actually discover together in this video? First, Japanese minimalism isn't about perfection. It doesn't demand flawless floors and showroom-level styling. It allows scratches, patina, little marks of life, and sees them as part of the beauty. Second, it's not about empty spaces for the sake of emptiness. The the open space, is there so you can move, breathe, gather, sleep, live. It's space with a purpose, not a design stunt. Third, it goes way beyond a one-time cleanup. It's not just that intense weekend with 10 trash bags and a dramatic before-after photo. It's a slow, ongoing relationship with your things. Choosing carefully, maintaining what you keep, buying less but better, resisting the quick hit of fast consumerism. Fourth, it doesn't have to look like a cold, rigid, geometric museum. Japanese minimalism welcomes wood grain, soft fabrics, handmade pottery, organic lines and asymmetry that make a room feel alive and human. And finally, it's not a trend to keep up with. It's a way of living that shifts with your seasons, your climate, your personal rhythm. It asks for less, what's popular right now, and more, what actually supports the life I want to live. So maybe the real heart of Japanese minimalism is simple. Human-centered simplicity, quiet intention, and a life that feels a little more timeless, a little less frantic. Before you click away, I'd love to invite you to reflect for a second. Look around your home, or just picture it in your mind. What is one small change you could make tomorrow to bring a bit more real minimalism into your life? Clearing one surface, repairing one object, saying no to one impulse purchase. And here's my question for you. If you had to keep just one small item that really matters, one thing that tells your story, what would it be? Tell me in the comments. I'd genuinely love to read them. If this video resonated with you, feel free to like, subscribe, and hit the little bell. I'm planning a follow-up on how to gently transform your space into a Japanese-inspired minimalist home, without throwing everything away or spending a ton of money. If that's something you'd like to see, let me know. Until next time, may your space be simple, but full of meaning.